Yeah.
And you weren't really sparring. You were fighting. We were fighting all the time. And guys getting dropped all the time. And that was just the kind of gym that I was in.
There's no coming back from that. The people who like dissipate their teeth through drug usage, you don't get like a second set.
Didn't look like he got out of first gear. Jake Paul was just on pure survival mode from round 1 right through to round 6. I don't know if he's got a moral victory going 6 rounds. Maybe he has. People might give him credit for going 6 rounds. But he got in there and just survived. He just went in there and ran like a chicken from round 1 right through to round 6 when he got splattered.
Joe Rogan was absolutely shocked. So here's what went down when he saw that devastating injury Jake Paul took during that vicious Anthony Joshua fight, and man was he rattled by what he witnessed. He spoke with absolute certainty about how boxing poses genuine life-threatening risks, not some minor danger you can just ignore or downplay. And what really caught his eye was this brutal reality check. He stated with zero hesitation that pushing forward after taking that level of punishment could seriously mess with not only your performance in the ring, but your actual cognitive abilities and how you function in everyday situations moving forward. We're looking at the type of damage that comes home with you, that changes how your mind works, how you handle information, how you experience every moment for years and years to come. Medical professionals have stepped up with serious warnings about how these injuries create lasting effects that don't just disappear with time off or medical treatment. They're being completely direct about how accepting these dangers in professional boxing is incredibly risky and could fundamentally alter your entire existence in ways that reshape your identity as a human being. Your entire world could be destroyed because after that point, nothing stays the same.
You can't think, you can't do things, you don't know what the you're doing in life. It's like literally everything is the quality of your ability to think. And I knew that I was putting that in jeopardy.
Joe Rogan, this expert, has stepped forward with real intensity, strongly urging Jake Paul to think twice about pursuing these increasingly dangerous boxing contests that keep escalating in severity. He's speaking with genuine alarm that no professional milestone, no level of recognition or financial gain or public attention justifies putting your actual existence, your well-being, your tomorrow at stake. And let me break down what went down following Jake's latest battle against Anthony Joshua, because the aftermath was absolutely devastating. Jake took massive punishment that went way beyond superficial damage. We're dealing with a shattered jawbone, several teeth that were knocked out completely and required surgical removal, the type of trauma that demands extensive medical care and extended healing periods. This commentator is making the point, and he's absolutely right, that staying on this specific trajectory, facing these caliber of opponents, might result in even worse injuries that could be irreversible, the kind of harm that becomes part of your permanent reality. He's really hammering home that the thrill and celebrity status of these massive high-profile matches comes with an incredibly steep personal price that you're settling with your physical body and mental capacity. What he's communicating to athletes and skeptics everywhere is that everyone participating needs to understand that wellness, your future quality of life, must always, without exception, come before achievement inside those ropes, because no triumph matters if your mind can't even process what happened.
Here's the thing. Look at all them celebrities like dude from the Mighty Ducks, the little boy actor that got strung out on drugs. And all his fronts and all his teeth were missing from being on meth or whatever, you know what I mean, whatever drug of choice he was on. There's no coming back from that. The people who like dissipate their teeth through drug usage, you don't get like a second set. So if I'm not mistaken, the dude from Mighty Ducks, somebody like he's been clean and they gave him a makeover and he has like pretty much fake teeth. So yeah, the teeth are going to be cooked. Now, I agree with the other part that Rogan was saying, but let's keep going.
Yeah.
I think he went into that fight knowing that was probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the big win for him would be that he was even willing to do it and that he could do well for a little bit.
Yeah, and I've already expressed my thoughts on this. I'm not giving no props for a person who says I am a real deal boxer because I went in and get smashed and got my jaw broken, but I lasted longer than Ngannou. But I was crazy enough to try, because to be honest, we're way past the honeymoon stage with a person like Jake Paul. you've been in this for long enough to go through fight camps, dedicate your time, effort, energy, money, spar with people. You spar with some quality names because you have resources and money or whatever. So we're well past that to the point where you just get credit for stepping in. You maybe got credit your first fight or whatever, first couple of fights, for coming from your background.
David Haye stepped up and broke down exactly why Anthony Joshua couldn't finish Jake Paul in those opening moments, and his breakdown actually holds water when you examine the details. He was observing that despite Joshua not connecting with those devastating fight-stopping strikes during the early action, Jake still walked away with serious trauma by the final bell, which shows you how this sport really operates. Haye pointed out with genuine knowledge that professional boxing isn't like those instant finishing scenarios you witness in films or social media clips, where a single strike just shuts everything down without warning. What really went down was Jake kept circling the ring, staying in motion, and consistently ducking those power shots that might have concluded things immediately, which demonstrated some tactical awareness to his credit. But here's the key detail, and this is what audiences must grasp about competitive fighting. The steady accumulation of contact, the relentless stream of strikes connecting across several rounds, finally wore down his stamina and his capacity to keep going. Haye made clear, and this matters for spectators to understand, that Joshua doesn't deserve blame or judgment for not stopping Jake right away during those first exchanges, because professional boxing involves much more than just hunting for desperate early endings from the starting moment, managing the pace, sticking to your approach, and connecting with calculated shots that build damage throughout the contest. These elements count far more than just chasing a risky immediate stoppage. Even though Jake survived those opening rounds and made it past the initial attacks, the total punishment he absorbed during the entire fight demonstrates exactly how brutal boxing becomes, even when you're dealing with controlled strikes from an experienced opponent who's fighting intelligently instead of recklessly.
So that's usually what happened what was always going to happen. You know, a lot of people thought it would only last 1 round, 2 rounds, but you know, you got to give Jake credit. You know, he went out there and had a solid game plan and was implementing it at times, was landing shots and was avoiding getting hit with the big shots. You know, but there's a reason we have weight categories in boxing, and I'd say he sticks with, you know, the cruiserweight division where the guys are the same size as him, because that, you know, without having the schooling, the many years, I was able to give away 100 pounds in weight because I've been boxing since I was 10. I was an international amateur and world champion at cruiserweight. That's why I was able to do the big jump and use the tactics that he used to win the heavyweight championship. But you know, credit to him, nothing but respect for Jake Paul for putting on such an event and putting himself in harm's way.
I would imagine some people back home for you are going to say, man, AJ should have gotten out of there in 2 rounds.
No, anyone who understands boxing knows it's very difficult to close the range on someone who doesn't want to hold his feet. And AJ's supposed to just run around swinging and missing. No, he's supposed to, you know, wait for the right opportunity, which he did. And once the opportunity presented himself, he landed and the fight was over. But you know, anyone who kind of gives AJ stick because he didn't knock him out in 1 round doesn't understand boxing.
What level would you say Jake Paul is after that performance?
Pardon?
What level would you say Jake Paul is?
It's hard to tell. It's very difficult to see what level he was, because he was fighting someone in the top 5 in the world. So
Boxing experts throughout the professional community are becoming more outspoken and worried about Jake Paul's fighting direction, and they're recommending with genuine concern that he seriously think about stepping away from professional boxing at this competitive level. They're highlighting something that's been clear to dedicated boxing followers, which is that during his whole run leading up to this moment, Paul has consistently ducked genuinely tough world-class opponents who might actually challenge his abilities. He's frequently faced aging boxers who are beyond their peak years, inexperienced fighters who don't have professional backgrounds, or competitors switching from other sports like mixed martial arts, where the punching technique is totally different, and this entire approach has left many respected boxing commentators questioning the authenticity of his seemingly solid win-loss record. This strategy of selective matchmaking has maintained supporters and doubters in constant uncertainty and doubt because Paul has never regularly demonstrated himself against championship-level opposition during their prime fighting years. The sort of athletes who would truly reveal any flaws in his technique. Right now, Following his crushing defeats against both Anthony Joshua and Tommy Fury, experts are insisting with serious worry that the challenges he's been dodging have finally confronted him in a devastating fashion. They're emphasizing with real anxiety that his earlier approach of ducking legitimate dangerous opponents let him preserve what appeared like an impressive record statistically, creating his reputation with mainstream supporters who didn't examine closely at his actual opposition. But these latest brutal losses reveal something that can't be dismissed any longer, which is that he might have hit the complete limit of his realistic boxing future, especially at this tier of competition. And here's what truly concerns the profession. They're warning that continuing to compete, particularly against championship opponents, might be incredibly risky for his permanent wellness, possibly creating irreversible harm that no financial reward or public recognition would ever make worthwhile.
Now boxers, like Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, none of them are boxers. Nate Robinson, who's a YouTuber. So I guess, over the hill, retired Mike Tyson, who's 60, almost lost his life before the fight and had blood transfusions and was coughing up blood and was transported off of a plane for passing out. And Jake Paul wanted to fight him and still tried to knock him out. A lot of y'all like to say he had mercy on Mike, but I promise you, I watched the fight. Just go back and watch it again. He was trying to knock Mike Tyson out from beginning to end. He could not do it. The reason he couldn't do it is because he refused to get too close to Mike Tyson, because Mike Tyson always would swing back, and he knew could not take that punch from Mike Tyson. So he hit and he ran. And at the end of the fight, he was not showing mercy on Mike. He was trying to make sure that he doesn't get knocked out or caught with something stupid, because he knows he's about to win. He didn't want to risk it. I'm not going to keep letting y'all run with this narrative that Mike Tyson was following a script with all these fake script posts running around on Facebook, or saying that he...
Eddie Hearn looks back on the entire event with his measured, almost thoughtful approach, and he truly feels that everything during that contest developed precisely as intended, which becomes fascinating when you consider the planning involved. He describes thoroughly that the approach entering the competition was always focused on timing, keeping dominance during each round, and slowly breaking Jake Paul down both physically and psychologically before completing the victory when the moment arrived perfectly. While Hearn confesses that originally, before the opening bell, he anticipated a much faster conclusion, maybe even an early round finish, he eventually became truly pleased that the bout continued longer than expected, because it let their meticulously designed strategy completely unfold and showcase Joshua's total superiority. He remembers with sharp detail particular instances during the action, where Joshua remained perfectly calm and unbothered by anything Jake attempted, displaying this absolute confidence and fight awareness that only develops from decades of competition at the championship tier. For Hearn, reviewing the complete showing, this contest demonstrated without question Joshua's background, his tactical intelligence, and his capacity to implement a strategic approach under intense pressure. He also dismisses all the external criticism and internet reactions that always emerge following any significant contest, stating with slight amusement that none of that digital noise or casual fan criticism takes away from the actual outcome or the brilliant performance they showcased during the fight.
Break him down. He said before the fight, I'm going to break him down and then I'm going to knock him out. And that's exactly what he did. I thought it'd be all over within 3 rounds. But when I got in the ring after, because I was shouting, just, anywhere, armed. I got in, he went, what are you rushing me for? And I was like, oh, sorry. So, but like, obviously he knows what he's doing, and actually now quite pleased that we got the rounds, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw you said that. Really random, I was on Twitter and I saw Jake Paul's mum said she wants to get in the ring and punch you. She said she doesn't like the smug look on your face. She is promoting her book, so I'm not sure if she wants, But did you see that? What did you think of that?
No, I was very sad because I couldn't have been nicer and more respectful of Jake and what he's done. And I think Logan's amazing. I think he's an incredible athlete. And I shook Jake Paul's dad's hand in the ring, And if I would have seen Mum, I would have said, all right. But I think over the years, we've obviously had our beef, and she probably don't like me anyway. And I am probably a little bit smug. I wasn't smug after the fight because I would have been more smug if it was all over in a round. So no, I give Jake respect, and yeah, sorry, Jake's mum doesn't like me, but if she can send me a free book.
Combat sports experts from every corner of the industry are stating definitively that Jake Paul's latest contest devastatingly revealed the boundaries of his legitimacy in serious boxing, and they're speaking openly in their evaluation. They describe with visible annoyance that simply putting on equipment and entering a competition area doesn't immediately transform someone into a credible competitor, and all the marketing and publicity campaigns imaginable can't maintain genuine fan interest when the actual technique doesn't meet professional standards. Experts are emphasizing that his earlier event with Mike Tyson, which attracted enormous viewership and television revenue, already created significant questions among dedicated boxing supporters about whether this represented authentic competition or pure showmanship. And the Joshua contest confirmed all of those worries and beyond, really driving home the reality that there's an enormous gap between celebrity fighting and legitimate professional status. They're observing with specific data that authentic boxing supporters, the people who've been watching the sport for generations, are completely losing interest because they feel like their knowledge is being disrespected. The audience figures for Paul's contest dropped dramatically compared to what you witness for championship level authentic matches like Canelo Alvarez against Terence Crawford, which attract real boxing crowds who expect to witness world-class talent being displayed. Some commentators and supporters are even spreading different theories about the contest's ending, implying perhaps things weren't completely legitimate, though most credible experts reject that type of rumors. But here's what professionals everywhere can agree on. Whether you accept any gossip or not, Paul's connection to serious boxing supporters is declining fast. And the truth is that depending on entertainment, fame, and marketing hype instead of authentic talent and legitimate competition simply can't support a future in serious professional boxing going forward. Not when supporters have opportunities to watch real title-level boxing and can recognize the quality gap immediately.
Tests. Stopped on his feet, counted out, knocked out, whatever, however you want to call it. It wasn't a bad knockout. It wasn't an El Sparko. He wasn't rendered unconscious, but he got done. He got it on the chin. He went over. He didn't beat the count. He was sort of up on his feet. But if I'm honest, the whole fight was terrible, wasn't it? It was just so bad. It was just shit, wasn't it? A proper bad fight for AJ. And let me start with AJ. AJ was following him around the ring a little bit, sort of pouring with the jab, putting the jab on the shoulder of Jake Paul, sort of putting him in the corner, and not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. He didn't seem to be motivated to go in there and just smash Jake Paul into oblivion in the first 1 or 2 rounds, which I think he could have done. But he's been out the ring 15 months. He's a bit slow on his feet, a bit ring rust maybe, and it's hard. When I used to spar novice amateurs, even when I was a world champion pro, if you're not motivated, sometimes you can have a couple of bad rounds and you're sort of looking at your opponent and a jab hits you or right hand hits you. And I think AJ was in a bit of a daze early on, just walking him around, touching the jab on his shoulder, not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. Didn't look like he got out of first gear. Jake Paul was just on pure survival mode from round 1 right through to round 6. I don't know if he's got a moral victory going 6 rounds. Maybe he has. People might give him credit for going 6 rounds. But he got in there and just survived. He just went in there and ran like a chicken from round 1 right through to round 6 when he got splattered. And it's like, it's just, you can't really justify what he's done, because this is supposed to be a professional sanctioned boxing match. And I think it brings the integrity of the sport down when somebody like AJ, is a 2-time world champion, can't get in there and just completely dismiss somebody like Jake Paul, who I've said for ages can't fight. He's not a professional boxer. It's just AJ following him around, touching him to the shoulder. Round 1 came and went. Round 2 was much of the same, bit slow. I think AJ got caught with an overhand right at one stage, but sometimes when you're out in the rain, you're going to get wet. He was following him around, taking his eye off the ball, probably a bit undermotivated, thinking, what's this guy doing that's in front of me? Jake Paul was just running.
Sam Jones offers what could be the most honest and direct response to Jake Paul's loss against Anthony Joshua, and he's holding nothing back in his breakdown of what transpired. He confesses immediately that the contest was truly difficult to witness. But here's the revealing aspect. It wasn't difficult because of the brutality or aggression you occasionally witness in boxing, but because it clearly revealed major weaknesses in Paul's basic fundamentals and his complete grasp of the sport at a professional standard. Jones stresses with genuine belief that simply surviving a contest, making it through the rounds and reaching the closing bell, is definitely not equivalent to competing as a talented boxer who deserves that position. He goes deeper, discussing that simply avoiding strikes when they arrive, grabbing and tying up whenever you're threatened, or repeatedly backing up and creating distance to prevent confrontation, these methods might help a fighter survive periods and escape getting stopped early. But, and this is essential, it doesn't show real competitiveness or any genuine understanding of boxing's technical aspects. He strongly questions the excessive dependence on these defensive approaches, expressing, with some irritation, that supporters and fighters together should appreciate tactical aggression and technical skill far more than they appreciate simply remaining standing and aware until the closing moments. According to Jones, and he's drawing from knowledge here, contests like this particular one really demonstrate and reveal the core difference between celebrity boxing and legitimate athletics, proving that survival by itself, just making it across the finish line without getting knocked unconscious, doesn't command respect in the established boxing community where technique and courage define everything. What he's explaining is that real competition, the type that boxing supporters have valued for more than 100 years, demands authentic bravery to accept challenges, polished ability earned through years of preparation, and reliable performance of fundamentals round after round, not simply defensive survival approaches.
Train, or you put on a pair of boxing gloves. That does not mean that you will be perceived as legitimate. It doesn't mean people will be willing to pay to watch you fight. Me personally, I was done with Jake Paul after the pretend fight that he had with Mike Tyson last year. Clearly, I'm not the only one, because viewership for his fight last weekend with Anthony Joshua, it was significantly lower than a real fight between Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the main channels in the description below. There are a lot of allegations right now that the fight between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua was rigged, or it was supposed to be rigged. According to the conspiracy theories, Jake Paul was supposed to win the fight, but Anthony Joshua decided to knock his ass out anyway. If it was supposed to be rigged, it would not be the first time that a fight in boxing was stained with corruption. But either way, it doesn't matter, because interest in seeing Jake Paul fight is on the decline. His fight last weekend averaged 33 million views on Netflix. Now, to his credit, that is a great number.
Duke McKenzie offers what could be the most direct and knowledgeable viewpoint on the recent contest between Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul, and his analysis draws from generations of involvement in the sport at championship levels. He stresses immediately that his evaluation comes from a foundation of real understanding and professional background, rather than any personal prejudice or negative feelings toward either competitor in the match. McKenzie contends with quiet confidence that the final result of the contest, what occurred inside that ring, communicates everything without needing extensive additional analysis or discussion from commentators and spectators. The conclusive manner of the knockout, how completely and definitively it concluded the match, shows without question the difference in technique, background, and readiness between these two athletes at entirely separate tiers of the profession. He points out with genuine focus that reviewing the showing afterwards isn't about attacking anyone individually or attempting to diminish Jake Paul as an individual or even as a competitor overall, but it's about truthfully recognizing the facts of professional boxing at the elite tier. McKenzie points out with his characteristic direct approach that occasions like these contests that conclude definitively work as truly valuable lessons to everyone observing. Whether you're a casual viewer or future fighter, about the technical standard that's truly needed to succeed at the pinnacle of this discipline. For him, examining it with his experienced viewpoint, the contest's outcome by itself, simply what occurred during those brief minutes, proves beyond any logical dispute the difference in capability and training between someone like Joshua, who's competed at the championship tier for years, and someone like Paul, who's still comparatively new to professional boxing. This makes further arguments somewhat pointless in his opinion, and truly confirms the basic reality that achievement in boxing at the championship tier requires both raw ability and completely intense background inside the ring against championship-level competition.
Action to Anthony Joshua knocking out and breaking Jake Paul's jaw. Just talk to me right now about the fight itself, and then we'll break it down.
Bit of a crap fight, if we're all honest. It was like watching Jaws 2 when all the kids went out on their boats and they were in the middle of the sea, and the shark was just surrounding the boat, just like that's what it was like. It was just like a shark circling its prey, and just like it was like nibbling, and eventually got him. But Jake Paul showed big plums in there, no matter what anybody says about him, because I've seen people say, yeah, he went in there to survive. Yeah, okay, he went in there to survive. He's a guy that's been boxing a couple of years against a unified champion of the world who can really punch. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the best fight. It just wasn't the best thing to watch, was it? Like it was just, it weren't great. I just want to see now Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua. I think at the stages of their careers they're at, AJ and Tyson Fury, we don't need to see interim fights, Andrew. We don't need to see interim fights because they're just potential banana skins. We want to see two of the best heavyweights of this era going at it.
Once the contest concluded and everything calmed down, conversations between experts and supporters immediately shifted to what Jake Paul's future moves in boxing ought to realistically look like, and whether he should even keep going whatsoever. Experts and supporters together are proposing, with increasing agreement, that competing in the heavyweight class, where he's been attempting to establish his reputation, might truly not fit him physically or technically. They're referencing the obvious disparities in dimensions, natural power, and decades of built-up knowledge between him and opponents like Anthony Joshua, who've been preparing for this throughout their entire professional lives. The complete mismatch that everyone saw in that competition revealed in harsh detail the very serious risks of facing fighters who are dramatically bigger, more devastating, and incredibly more experienced in professional boxing at the championship tier. And it's creating major worries about his safety moving ahead if he stays on this direction. Commentators throughout the boxing community are stressing, with genuine concern, that continuing to compete at this standard against these types of opponents might result in additional major injuries that extend beyond what he's previously experienced, potentially creating permanent effects that might impact his life quality for many years ahead. Many informed people in the discipline are suggesting forcefully that Paul take a real break and reconsider his complete direction in boxing, maybe moving his attention to weight classes that better match his physical build and present skill level where he wouldn't face such a severe physical disadvantage. The wider discussion taking place right now truly emphasizes the pivotal significance of smart career decisions in professional boxing, where physical matching with your opponents, practical danger evaluation based on your technique, and permanent health factors are equally important, if not more critical than drive, publicity campaigns, and simple entertainment appeal when it comes to creating a lasting future.
Reminded me of, like when you got a fly on the windscreen and you're trying to swat it, and you're trying to swat it and you miss and you keep tapping, and then eventually, bang, you get it. That's exactly what that fight was. Jake Paul didn't get in there to win last night. He got in there to survive. And he didn't do a better job of surviving. He sold the fight brilliantly. That's what he is. He's a salesman. And he's a YouTuber, influencer, call him whatever you want. So from that perspective, he did his job, but he never got in there to win. He just got in there to got beat up. I'm glad Anthony Joshua done a number on him. This is why boxers are boxers, YouTubers, whatever they want to call themselves, influencers. They should stay in their lane and fight people that they're supposed to fight on their level. This guy was never on Anthony Joshua's level, and Joshua did what he needed to do, did what he had to do for the sake of boxing, and blow this guy out and just knock him out.
What about the fact that Jake was able to land on him clean a couple of times? What did you make of that?
Oh, listen, you can't get into the water without getting hit. Fortunately for Joshua, that guy can't break an egg. So he was never in any danger. He's always going to get hit back. I mean, it was 6 rounds. Anthony Joshua was always going to take at least 1 or 2 shots over that 6-round period, but it was nothing to hurt him, it was nothing to bother him. And like I say, this is all about getting AJ's confidence back. Okay. If Jake Paul fights, if he fights KSI or KFC or whatever his name is, then those two are evenly matched, aren't they? They're evenly matched, and then they could fight, you know, and then because the
effort he gave. Now, I know it's not easy to fight a guy that's running away from you, and Jake Paul made a ring bigger. It was 22 by 22 as
it's
opposed
huge
to
ring. When I was looking at it, I'm like, holy shit, this ring's massive.
I had said before the fight, I tweeted, I said, it was like a soccer field that they were, you know, fighting in, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not easy to do that, but he just looked poor in there and like he didn't really care. And, you know, you're being paid that much money and people are, you know, I looked at tickets today just to see on their ticket map how many tickets were left and what it was like. And there was tickets being sold for $3,500. And then this is the kind of performance, if you're AJ, that you give when you're being paid $35 million and people are paying that much money to get in. I thought that was, you know, the whole show was awful. Netflix ought to be embarrassed for putting that on, but that main event was just wow bad.
That's it for today's video. Stay tuned until next time.